spicy. Jimmy Garoppolo on there could be a benefit, but have they kind of burned that bridge?
We'll say this. Gardner Minshew is the best backup in the NFL.
I love Gardner. Welcome to 30 Minutes of Football with Legit Football. I am your host, Brian McFadden. We are live on YouTube and a bunch of other platforms. It is Friday, September 23rd, 2022. Week 3 has already begun. Thursday Night Football in the books. Cleveland Browns with a decisive victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is the Friday show. We're going to preview the entire Week 3 slate. We're going to go through every single game. I'm going to give you my picks against the spread as well as a confidence rating for each game. For those that are listening just in the podcast, I'll try to remember to actually announce the confidence rating. If you are watching us on YouTube, I will keep the graphic up so that you can actually see the confidence attached to each game. I am flying solo this week. Pro Football Demon is normally going to be doing these with me on Friday. I knew he wasn't going to be on the show. We had another guest, unfortunately, that had to cancel at the last second, so I'm just going to fly. That'll give me more time to really dive into my reasoning behind the picks for every single one of these Week 3 games. So let's do what we do. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Let's get that timer ready. Anthony behind the scenes. Shout out to my producer, Anthony Wayner, by the way. Don't give him enough credit. He is the one that runs the show. He is the one that runs the timer, among so many other things. The graphics you see, great job. Also a Lions fan, for those that don't know. So feel free to give him some slack in the chat. All right, guys, 30 minutes of football with Legit Football. Week 3 Game Picks edition starts now. So first I want to mention the picks record. So Rich and I are tracking our picks against the spread all season. We do have a wager that's tied into a double or nothing wager that we did earlier in the off season. So I have to start with a little bit of bragging. After 2 weeks, I am 17-15 picking against the spread. Rich Joe Dice, the Pro Football Demon, little bit behind me at 12-20. There's a lot of weeks left to make that up. Picking against the spread is no easy task. I think he's a great football mind. I am not comfortable with my lead. I'm not the Raiders versus the Cardinals last week. I'm not going to be comfortable going into the second half, but wanted to shout that out. We're going to track that each week. I do not have a punishment yet for him losing. He has one already in mind for me, so if you guys have ideas of what you would like the Pro Football Demon to do, probably involves his TikTok, send us some options. You can mention it in the chat here. You can reach out to us on Twitter. You can see the overlay on the live YouTube video here at _legitfootball, or just email me directly, brian@legitfootball.com. Also going to be keeping his picks at the bottom, scrolling. So if you are here for Pro Football Demon, you want to know what his picks are, I'm just going to keep that ticker scrolling at the bottom. I will also announce his picks for those that are just listening on the podcast. All right. Already managed to kill 2 minutes by myself. We got 28 minutes left. Let's go ahead and bring up the Week 3 picks. First, we'll talk about briefly the game last night. Pittsburgh was getting 5.5 points. This was my second most confident game. I had a confidence rating of 15 out of 16. I gave my reasoning last night, but I'll reiterate, I really believed that a Cleveland team that struggled to beat the Panthers, who I have at number 32 in my power rankings, and then lost to the New York Jets last week, was not going to be able to beat a division foe in Pittsburgh that they've had trouble with over the years by 6 points or more. I was wrong, and it was mainly because I actually underestimated just how bad this Steelers offense is. Mitch Trubisky has really had trouble moving the offense. The offensive line has had trouble giving him protection. George Pickens made maybe the best catch since the Odell Beckham catch, the one-handed catch there, which was phenomenal, but I feel like he actually made some plays. He messed up offsides on that the onside kick where there was a flag on him. They didn't recover it anyway, and a throw to the end zone that he probably should have had and didn't really make much of an attempt, kind of did another one-handed thing. But that being said, kudos to Cleveland. They had a game plan. They stuck to it. Nick Chubb looked great. They absolutely controlled the ball, and short of a small stint in the second quarter where Pittsburgh was moving the ball, they couldn't move the ball, and they weren't getting pressure on Brissett. Cleveland wins big. I was going to lose that spread whether or not there was that crazy play at the end. As you can see in the ticker, Rich also picked the Steelers, so this does not change the meter at all with regards to our picks competition. Let's go ahead and jump into the rest of the Week 3 games, starting with the Tennessee Titans at home against Las Vegas Raiders. This is two winless teams. You've got Tennessee, who was the number 1 team in the AFC last year as far as playoff seeding, against the Las Vegas Raiders, who is a team that a lot of people picked as a playoff team this year, actually did make the playoffs last year. What did they do? They added a more offensive coach in Josh McDaniels. They added one of the best receivers in the NFL in Devontae Adams. So they were a hype team all offseason. They have struggled out of the gate. This is a very important game for these two teams because starting 0-2, very difficult. I think the percentage to make the playoffs after starting 0-2 is about 11%, but starting 0-3 is like a death sentence at this point. So this is a huge game. Luckily for Tennessee, they're in a division in the AFC South where it's going to be wide open whether they make this or not. Vegas, though, is in the hardest division in the NFL in the AFC West. I have Tennessee winning and covering this game. I just think that I like Vrabel as a coach. I like how these two teams matches up. The Titans should have won Week 1. They basically just had a collapse against the Giants, and the Giants had to score a 2-point conversion to win. And they played the Buffalo Bills, which the defending Super Bowl champs also got crushed by the Bills. So I don't necessarily use that as a gauge. This is what it comes down to coaching. It's at Tennessee, so you get the home advantage. I don't see Vrabel starting 0-3. He's one of those coaches like Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh that gets more out of his team. I will say, though, my confidence level on this is 1. I am the least confident in this pick just because these are two teams that I could see it going either way. Vegas looked great in the first half against Arizona, then completely fell apart last week. But I just have to give the edge to coaching. Usually when you have these kind of toss-up games, that's where I'll tend to go unless there's like a gangbuster quarterback. Neither one of these teams has an elite quarterback. Slight edge to Carr, maybe, but Tannehill, I think, has not been the problem in Tennessee. So I've got Tennessee covering that 2.5 points at home, but my confidence is only 1. Cincinnati Bengals, speaking of 0-2 teams, traveling to the New York Jets fresh off their last-second win against the Browns. The Bengals are favored by 4.5. I am fairly confident in this game. I've got the Bengals to cover and, of course, to win. Once again, got to remember, going back to the Rich's picks, I got to make sure to announce his picks. So the Tennessee, Las Vegas, he's got the Raiders, so we're differing there. Cincinnati Jets, he is going with his Jets to cover. Doesn't mean they're going to win, but he believes that they'll lose by less than 4.5 points. I think this is a bounce-back game for the Bengals. I think that the offense has been able to move the ball, but maybe not as explosively as they have in the past. The offensive line is definitely an issue. If there's one factor that could turn this in the Jets' favor, it is the Jets' pass rush, being able to get to Burrow. We put out a story in Legit Football this morning. Burrow is on pace to be sacked more than any other quarterback in NFL history. He's on pace for 110 sacks taken. The offensive line was the big question going into the offseason. They supposedly fixed it. The results have been horrible so far. That being said, the Jets still have Joe Flacco at quarterback. I know he had some moments last week, but that was really more Cleveland melting down and the Jets getting hot at the right moments. Cincinnati still has a fairly respectable defense. I don't see Flacco being able to put 2 games like that together. I've got Cincinnati winning, I would say, by more like a 6 to 7 point range, and my confidence rating is 10. All right, I've got my Dolphins jersey on, or Dolphins shirt. For those that are watching and listening, thought I'd let you know I'm very happy with where Miami is at. And I'm going to ride that confidence as long as I can. But my most confident pick this week is that the Buffalo Bills, on the road, sure, their point spread is only 5.5. I'm supremely confident that the Buffalo Bills will beat my Miami Dolphins by 6 points or more. That's not a reflection on Miami. We all love the Tua story. I love how that offense looked, and I'm really, really excited on how this McDaniels offense will look going forward with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But to me, the Bills are on an entirely different level. They're just on a different playing field than the rest of the NFL. Even those other top teams behind them, if I have a chance to pick the Bills the way they're playing right now, as a less than a touchdown favorite, I'm going to be picking that spread all day. That's why that's my level 16 confidence. Guys, if you have thoughts on these disagreements, feel free to put it in the chat. Let's keep on rolling. But not a lot of... I hope I'm wrong. I would love nothing more than to be wrong and than to see the Dolphins win this game at home. But the Dolphins have struggled against the Bills recently that the Bills have just had their number, and the Bills have never been playing as well as they have now. I think the offensive line of Miami, while has looked better than last year, they haven't given me enough confidence to be able to hold off a torrid Buffalo Bills pass rush. Von Miller, AJ Epinesa, Greg Rousseau had a great week last week. I know that Buffalo is going to be missing some players in the defense. There's a little bit of hope there. Still, Buffalo to cover 5.5 points. My 16 confidence game. All right, Washington Commanders welcoming the Philadelphia Eagles. This is in Washington. Washington is getting 7.5 points, which is rich for a division game, and that is the reason. And I'm not confident on this game. My confidence rating is 4. Still remembering, got to go back to Rich's pick. If you're not watching, we have the ticker at the bottom. Rich agrees with me on the Bills. He's picking the Bills to cover the spread. Washington, 7.5 points. I know the Eagles look great. They're our number 2 team in the power rankings from our power ranking show on Wednesday. But this is still a division game. Washington is capable of putting up points. The Lions put up points on the Eagles in week 1, so we know that an offense can get hot and score on this Philadelphia defense. I absolutely think the Eagles will win this game, but it's 8 points in a division game in Washington. It's just hard for me to take those points there. So I am going to be picking Washington to cover, but I'm not all that confident in it. My confidence level is 4, and Rich disagrees with me. Like he so often does, the Pro Football Demon is picking the Eagles not only to win by 8 points or more. All right, let's go over to Kale Kolb in the chat said, my Colts are going to get spanked this week. So that's the game we're going to be covering next. The Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. Chiefs are favored by 6.5. My confidence level on this at 8, but I do have to agree with you, Kale. I've got the Chiefs winning and covering this game. I think this is just a very bad luck matchup for the Colts after looking so bad against Jacksonville and Houston for the first 2 weeks. They have to play the Kansas City Chiefs, who have looked good on both sides of the ball, undefeated, beat the Chargers in a juggernaut match last week. Andy Reid has a mini bye because they played on last Thursday, so he's got extra time to prepare against a Colts offense that has been sluggish. Now, Alec Pierce is trending to being back. He practiced the last 2 days. Michael Pittman has been practicing, but it still looks like they might be without Shaq Leonard. I think one of the things we've underestimated with the Colts is the loss of Matt Eberflus as defensive coordinator, now the head coach of the Chicago Bears. They've got Gus Bradley, which is kind of a more old school coach, and that Colts defense just has not played up to their talent level. And now you have to face that Chiefs offense. So I'm really, I like the Chiefs to win. It is a little bit high on the points, which is why I'm not super confident. I'm kind of right in the middle with an 8. But both Rich and I agree the Chiefs will cover that 6.5. Apologies, Kale. You're in the AFC South. You can turn this thing around. I believe you guys have the Titans next week. You can still make a play to win that division, but not looking good in week 3. All right, we got about 3.5 minutes left. Let's go ahead and get to the Chicago Bears against the Houston Texans. This game is in this game is in Chicago. Fresh off 2 disappointing losses for both these teams. These are kind of 2 bottom dweller teams. Chicago is favored by 2.5. This comes down to a couple things. One, I mentioned Matt Eberflus. I like how he has coached up this Bears team so far. I know they didn't look great against the Packers, but they did manage to beat a very good San Francisco Niners team in a bad weather game in week 1. They showed some flashes in the run game and on defense. And I think if they can get Justin Fields out and moving a little bit more, the offensive line is an issue. I don't think Houston has the talent to take advantage of that, so I give advantage Chicago. I got the Bears winning, and I have the Bears covering that 2.5 points. Rich disagrees with me. He has Houston covering this game. All right, let's try to get 1 or 2 more games in before we go to the second half. New Orleans Saints traveling for a division game, an NFC South game against the Carolina Panthers. Saints are favored by 3.5 points on the road. My confidence level is 9 of this. I am not high on Carolina at all. I don't know if you guys saw that Dan Orlovsky video. Dan Orlovsky, for a former quarterback in the NFL, works for ESPN, where he broke down how the Panthers were telegraphing with where they were placing Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, whether it was going to be a run or a pass. A Panthers team that lost to the Giants, lost to the Browns, has been able to get hot, but Baker has been streaky, as he is. The defense, which was so good a year ago and helped them get off to that 3-0 start last season, has not been as good. I just like how this matches up for the Saints. I like the Saints' defense to hold Carolina to a low-scoring game. I don't think the Saints are going to put up a bunch of points because I'm not confident in their offense, but I do think, they were neck and neck with the Bucs until the end of that game, really until that Lattimore-Evans fight. So I think that they can win by 4 points or more. I know it's a division game. My confidence level is 9, so kind of right in the middle. I've got the Saints, and Rich agrees with me. The Pro Football Demon is also picking New Orleans to cover. All right, let's break down one more game. We got just over a minute until halftime. We've got the Baltimore Ravens, fresh off that very disappointing loss against the Miami Dolphins, traveling to the New England Patriots. This is one of my higher confidence games. Now, I had a high confidence game that the Steelers would cover against the Patriots last week. I was wrong on that. I really think that's more a reflection of how bad Pittsburgh is. I'm going to maybe stop picking Pittsburgh to cover these spreads instead of how good New England is. The Patriots, they did the Bill Belichick offense. They controlled the ball against Pittsburgh, but they didn't move the ball all that well. They were basically one great Nelson Aguilar touchdown away from not winning that game. They really only squeaked it out by 4 points. And they're playing a Ravens team who has looked great, regardless of the fact that they ended up losing to the Dolphins. I think that was very much a reflection of Tua and that offense getting hot. Lamar Jackson has looked like an MVP caliber quarterback. I like that J.K. Dobbins is trending towards being back for this game. So I just like 3.5 points is not enough for me. I think that this New England defense is not built to stop an offense like the Ravens have with Lamar Jackson leading. So I like the Ravens to win on the road, and I'm very confident. 14 is my confident level to cover this game. And Rich also agrees with me, the Pro Football Demon. We are aligned on this. We have reached halftime. David Morazzo, I want to highlight this, put a question up in the chat. What's with that Ravens pass defense? Unbelievable. See, I think it's more of a question of, and they did have a few injuries towards the end of last week, but that Dolphins offense, I just think that Mike McDaniels, you would know this, David, as a Niners fan, really understands that Shanahan scheme, being able to scheme receivers open. And when you can scheme receivers open to the quality level of a Tyreek Hill and a Jalen Waddle, guys that are two of the fastest wide receivers in the league, you're going to get yards after catch. You're going to get opportunities. And Tyreek Hill, the definition of blowing the top off the defense. Yes, there was some blown coverage, but I think that's the Tyreek Hill effect. So I put that a little bit less on the Baltimore Ravens pass defense and a little bit more on Miami offense. Even so, the Patriots offense is not built to take advantage of that. Mac Jones, without Josh McDaniels calling the play, their offense has also looked stuck in the mud. They've relied on a little bit more ball control, but the Ravens are a lot more talented than the Steelers. That's why I'm confident in that pick. All right, guys, thanks for sticking with me in this solo episode. Quick plug in our halftime, legitfootball.com. The whole reason we do any of this is we started an NFL media company called Legit Football, where our main product is a daily free NFL briefing. One thing I don't usually mention, I'll go ahead and mention here, is we have an app. You can download the Legit Football app. Let's say email isn't your thing. That's fine. Not everybody likes email newsletters. I get it. You can still get your daily briefing in app form on both the App Store for Apple, iPhone, or Google Play for your Android. So just look up Legit Football app. You can get it by app, or as always, go to legitfootball.com, hit join, enter your email address, and get a free top stories of the day 5 days a week all year long. legitfootball.com. And hey guys, give me a follow on Twitter as well, @_legitfootball. And if you're watching this or listening for the first time, go ahead and subscribe to this show. We're doing it 5 days a week. All right, I am ready. No guest to check in on. Let's go ahead and get ready for the second half. Pick the rest of these games. And guys, we got a few things in the chat, but feel free to give me your thoughts on who you like in certain games, whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong, all of those things. Let's go ahead and bring up the picks. All right, let's go to our producer Anthony's Detroit Lions. This is actually one of the, shout out to David. He signed up for the newsletter yesterday, didn't receive a newsletter today. Check out the app. Check your spam folder. So sometimes we don't have control over that. It'll go to like a spam folder or a promotion. Sometimes if you have Gmail. So make sure to check out that. The newsletter did go out this morning. But we can also connect offline, David. I can check and make sure your email is connected properly. But thank you for signing up. All right, so the Detroit Lions, this is one of the games I'm most interested to watch this week. Detroit Lions 1-1 at Minnesota Vikings 1-1. This is an NFC North matchup. It could be, if the Lions keep playing well, it could be a game that helps determine playoff seeding come the end of the season. Detroit's getting 5.5 points. That's one of the things I like best about this matchup. I actually think that the Vikings will win this game at home, But the way Detroit has been able to put up points, the way the Eagles were able to move the ball easily against that Vikings defense, I have a hard time believing that the Vikings will win by 6 points or more. This is my number 13 confidence. Once again, I'm not saying Detroit will win. Sorry, Anthony. Although Pro Football Demon agrees with me that Detroit will cover. He actually thinks the Lions will outright win this game. I at least believe they will cover. I am picking the Detroit Lions. Confidence level of 13. I think this is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a great divisional matchup. But like most divisional matchups, it's very hard to pick high point spread. It's one of the reasons I picked the Steelers last night. So kudos to the Lions for playing great. They actually have one of the top point scoring offenses in the NFL so far. The Vikings, which defense are we going to get? The Vikings from week 1 against the Packers, or the Vikings that just absolutely could do nothing against that Eagles offense on Monday Night Football earlier this week? I think it's somewhere in between. I think the Lions will be able to put up points. I do not think they have the defense, especially in the secondary, to slow down this Kevin O'Connell offense. I think the Vikings get back on track. I think that this is a big Justin Jefferson game, especially after how much he was shut down by Darius Slay in that Eagles secondary on Monday. So for a fantasy purpose, DFS, look Justin Jefferson's way. Detroit doesn't have the back-end coverage talent to stop this Vikings offense. But I just think it'll be a shootout. I think the Lions will keep it close. Jimmy Ray, shout out to Jimmy Ray, NFL stats. Good teams win, great teams cover. I think the Lions can do both against Minnesota. So you heard it here. Jimmy Ray from NFL stats at NFL_stats, if you're not following him on Twitter, agrees with the Pro Football Demon that the Lions will win. We're all in agreement that they'll cover. So that's one of the reasons why it's my 13 confidence for this week. Not a surprise that our producer, Anthony, spotlighted that Lions win, and I'll let you have that one, Anthony. I hope for your sake, I'd like to see the Lions win this game. One of the reasons I'm following this one particularly close. Okay, let's go to the Los Angeles Chargers, fresh off their loss against the Kansas City Chiefs in heartbreaking fashion with that pick 6 last Thursday Night Football. Playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, this is in LA. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. The Chargers do not have a huge home field advantage. A lot of times they actually have a lot of fans from other teams, so I don't necessarily make that an advantage, although the Jaguars do have to travel across, and that sometimes the time difference, jet lag, is an actual thing that a lot of times can affect these games. It is a high point spread. Chargers are favored at home by 7.5. The Jacksonville Jaguars just played great, very efficient. Lawrence had his best game as a pro against the Colts last week. That being said, I think the Chargers are one of the best teams in the NFL. I actually think they played better overall than the Chiefs, and just, a few of those dropped interceptions go the other way against Mahomes. We see a different outcome. All reports are that Herbert is looking pretty normal in practice, regardless of his injury. Keenan Allen has been practicing again. He's trending towards playing. As much as I like Jacksonville and that wide open AFC South in general, traveling to take on LA on the West Coast, not that confident. So I do pick the Chargers not only to win this game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but to cover. Not super confident. My confidence level is 7. Let's go ahead and pull up the Pro Football Demon picks. So let's see. He is in agreement with me that the Chargers cover here. So once again, 7 confidence level, kind of in the middle because Jacksonville played well. Their defense is playing better than expected. They almost pulled off a win against Washington and decisively beat the Colts. They're not that far away from being 2-0. But I think they come down a little bit here against a very, very good Chargers team who is a complete football team on both sides of the ball. Let's go. We got 10 minutes left. Back to probably one of the most juggernaut matches this week, although not the way you think. Green Bay Packers traveling to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Green Bay with that very decisive win on a Chicago team that, to be honest, they usually beat. Aaron Rodgers, the whole quote-unquote, I own the Bears. Just another example of that. They matched up well. I picked them to cover the 10.5 points, and they did. Very confident in that last week. Not as confident in my pick this week, mainly because I could see this game very much going either direction. When I said it's not how you think, this may be Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady, but I do not see this as a high-scoring shootout. Both teams right now are very much relying on their run game and their defense. On paper, Packers have maybe a top 3 to 5 defense. Yes, they didn't look great against the Vikings in week 1, but they absolutely shut down the Bears, short of some, garbage time runs at the end of the game. And then you have the Bucs, who might be the number 1 or at least number 2 defense alongside the Bills. And then you have 2 teams that Green Bay Packers have not really found that wide receiver to replace Devontae Adams yet. Tampa Bay, all the receivers are either suspended or injured. Julio Jones was going to be a game-time decision. Mike Evans' suspension upheld, will not be available. Chris Godwin has not been practicing. Highly unlikely that he's available. Russell Gage still beat up. You basically got Scotty Miller. They signed Cole Beasley, but I mean, he hasn't been on a team. Can he get up to speed? Just a lot of factors on both sides of the ball. I'm giving the slight edge to Green Bay because I like what they're set up in the run game with both A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, especially what they showed last week against Chicago, to cover. The Bucs are favored by 2.5. I actually think that the Packers will win this game, and it's a low-scoring contest. So I'm picking the Packers to cover to get that 2.5 points. My confidence level is 2. So short of the Tennessee-Vegas game, which to me could go any direction, I'm just not all that confident, but I am going to pick Green Bay to cover. Rich disagrees with me. Pro Football Demon is picking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If the Bucs had all their weapons, I would feel differently about this at home. Aaron Rodgers actually doesn't do well in Tampa Bay. He has bad statistics, a bad record. I just like the matchup with that run game being the difference in the Packers against the Bucs here. All right, let's go to the Los Angeles Rams, defending Super Bowl champs, fresh off their win, but almost collapse against the Atlanta Falcons. In a NFC West division game, if you guys, shout out to John Chapman and 49ers Rush. Every Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, I am a guest on his show during the season. What does that mean? That means we're taking a look at the entire NFC West. So we broke this game down on there. My opinion is the same as it was on Thursday. I am not high on Arizona at all. They're basically one Kyler Murray heroic performance away from being 0-2, coupled with the Raiders, I think, just really bad conservative play calling to end the game last week, whereas the Rams have had no trouble putting up points. Arizona, if you like Football Outsiders, their DVOA metric has them as the 31st worst pass defense in the NFL through 2 games, the 28th worst overall defense, and they're going up a team which is, LA has their issues, especially in the offensive line, but Arizona is not primed to take advantage of that with really a lack of a pass rush. Chandler Jones is now in Vegas. They don't have anybody really stepping up. Isaiah Simmons was supposed to be their big defensive breakout. Well, guess what? He played very little last week. So I just like this matchup. Sean McVay has owned Cliff Kingsbury as in Arizona, has only beaten McVay once. I know this is in Arizona. My confidence level is 6 because it is a division game. The spread at 3.5. I'm taking the Rams to cover that and to win. Fairly confident in that. The only reason it's a 6 is because it's a division game on the road, so it could go in any direction. All right, let's go on. I see some mentions in the chat about the Seahawks and Falcons, so let's go ahead and jump into that game. David Morazzo says, my brother is a Seahawks fan, and even he is taking the Falcons. So we've got the Atlanta Falcons traveling on the road. They get 1.5 against the Seattle Seahawks. I'm actually fairly confident in this for a few reasons. I am picking Atlanta to win and to cover. The Falcons are actually a frisky team. They were controlling the game against the Saints for basically 3.5 quarters in week 1, only to collapse at the end. But they had control of that game, and they nearly came back against the defending Super Bowl champions. I think they're very well coached. I think this defense under Dean Pease is very aggressive. Seattle should be 0-2. Had they not played a very ill-prepared, Nathaniel Hackett-led Broncos team with Russ returning and a raucous home crowd, I think they would have lost that game. They were absolutely dominated on all sides of the ball versus the 49ers, a division foe that they've been able to beat fairly often recently. Didn't even score a single offensive touchdown. I like the weapons in Atlanta. I like the defensive aggressiveness in Atlanta. That's why I have a confidence level of 12 for the Falcons to win and to cover. As David mentioned in the chat, his brother, who's a Seahawks fan, is in agreement here. And Pro Football Demon also in agreement, picking the Falcons here. So I think we're all kind of seeing that this is a really nice play. I'm just not confident in the Seahawks at all. They were my number 32 team in the offseason for much of my power rankings. I'm higher on the Falcons. I like Atlanta to cover here. All right, we've got just about 4.5 minutes left. Go ahead and pull up Joel Norette DeWinter says, if my Fins can stay within a touchdown, I'll be happy, and win will make me insufferable. As a fellow Dolphins fan, Joel, I'm with you. If we can cover that spread, like if we can lose by even 6 and don't cover the spread, like to me, that's a victory against a Bills team that has looked absolutely unstoppable. If we beat the Bills, I'm not sure. I might be insufferable on this show next week as well. Stay tuned if the Dolphins actually pull off that win. Thanks for your thoughts here. All right, let's go ahead and bring up the 49ers game. We've got the San Francisco 49ers traveling to the Russell Wilson, very familiar with him as an opponent, led Denver Broncos. Another game that I'm pretty confident. I have a confidence rating of 11. David Morazzo, bang, bang, Niner gang. David came over to this show from 49ers Rush. So once again, shout out David. Thanks again for signing up for the newsletter. Yeah, I'm with you here. Fairly confident that the San Francisco 49ers will win and cover this game. I think you have to take that. I said this on the show, the John Chapman's 49ers Rush yesterday. You have to take that Bears game in week 1 and put it in a box. The bad weather game, Trey Lance getting his first start, thinking that he was the starter for the whole season. Terrible injury, I know. But this roster is one of the better rosters in the entire NFL. Going up against a Denver team that is very, very poorly coached, that is correctable, but I'm not sure they can flip the switch and correct it in such a quick game. A defense that matches up very well against the Broncos offense that has had, kind of middle of the road as far as their offensive protection, have been very bad in the red zone, the Broncos. So I just think that the Niners, Kyle Shanahan as a coach versus Nathaniel Hackett, just what a huge stark difference there. So I'm confident in the 49ers winning and covering 1.5. I think it probably should be a little bit more based on what we've seen out of Denver, so I will happily take that 1.5. David Morazzo says, winning at Mile High is never easy. I agree. Which is probably why this isn't like a 15 or 16 confidence level for me. But I just look at the way those two teams have been run, and look, we could turn this around. If Nathaniel Hackett is able to actually figure out how to do clock management, I haven't liked their play calling. Apparently, he's giving Russell Wilson a lot of freedom in the play calling, so maybe a lot of that comes down to Russell Wilson just making bad calls and bad reads. We've seen some videos circulating on social media and the game tape where Russell's missing wide open receivers and that his receivers are getting open and he's just not finding them. So a lot of problems in Denver. It can be corrected this early in the season, but until they do, I'm a lot more confident in what I saw out of San Francisco, especially with Jimmy G, who's just a stable force to that offense. What I saw last week versus what I saw a Denver team that probably would have lost if they were playing almost any team other than the Houston Texans last week. All right, that does it for the Sunday game. So let's go ahead and highlight our one Monday night, back to one Monday night game. It's a lot easier to cover one at a time. Dallas Cowboys, led by Cooper Rush, traveling to the undefeated New York Giants. We put out our power rankings. Shout out to Jimmy, NFL Stats, if he's still watching. On Wednesday, we're going to be doing that every Wednesday at 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. We're going to draft our power rankings and then put it out on Twitter. We're working on a cool graphic that'll debut next week. One of the biggest complaints we got was that we had the Giants too low. Yes, they're one of the only undefeated teams after 2 weeks, but you have to take a few things into context. They beat a Titans team that is on the way down, absolutely trounced by the Bills last week, and the Titans controlled most of that game. That was not necessarily the Giants. I think that's coaching. That's Dable getting his players excited and motivated to play. They pulled out a last-second victory. And then they eked a win out against a Panthers team who we have ranked 32nd. So not ready to crown the Giants just yet. That said, I'm not all that confident. The Giants are actually favored by 2.5, which is very interesting. I think that's a combination of how Dallas has looked, Cooper Rush starting quarterback, the fact that Giants are 2-0. But I think the Cowboys defense, regardless of everything that's happened, has been phenomenal. Micah Parsons already playing like a defensive player of the year. I think that's the difference. I think we see the Giants come down slightly. Now, look, if the Giants win this game and go to 3-0, I guarantee you I'm going to shoot them way up in my power rankings. But until then, confidence level of 5. Rich disagrees with me. Pro Football Demon, by the way, also he picked San Francisco. Forgot to mention that. Pro Football Demon is picking the Giants to cover this game at 2.5 points. I am in disagreement. I am picking Dallas to cover and to win. There we go. Solo episode. Managed to give a lot more flavor. I hope this was helpful. I hope you guys liked this particular format. I always prefer having a guest, but we may have different scenarios throughout the season where it has to just be me. That allows me to really expand more. For those of you guys who don't know, I watch every single game. I have direct NFL Sunday ticket on DirecTV. When hopefully they switch to Amazon or somebody else, I'll switch that next year. But I've got all the games up. I cover every single game. I'll rewatch them on Game Pass or NFL Plus if I have to. I try to get as much, and we have a daily NFL newsletter. So I try to be as plugged in as I can. A lot of these are very, very informed decisions. But hey, the NFL is unpredictable. It's hard to predict. I do have a winning record, but I'm not a prognosticator. I do hope you guys take this, in context, use it to make your own betting decisions, and I hope that you guys win some money. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. We're excited for week 3. Next show will be Monday, 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern, leading right up into the Monday game, recapping all of the Sunday week 3 action. Thank you for listening and watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Check out Legit Football. This has been 30 Minutes of Football with Legit Football. Enjoy the games. We'll see you Monday. That's spicy. Jimmy Garoppolo on there could be a benefit, but have they kind of burned that bridge?
We'll say this. Gardner Minshew is the best backup in the NFL.
I love Gardner.